Welcome, the anointed ones. Some people don't realize they've lost a blessing until life starts charging them full price for what you once gave for free. That's the kind of truth that hits harder the moment you walk away. And chosen one, whether you know it or not, you became a living reminder in someone's life. A reminder they can't erase, can't replace, and absolutely cannot forget. The moment you delivered that final checkmate, calm, precise, and without theatrics, it did something to them, not just emotionally, psychologically. That move didn't just close the chapter, it exposed the entire story. Here's a fact that psychologists actually agree on. The human mind is wired to obsess more over the person who outsmarted them than the person who hurt them. That means the real reason they can't forget you has nothing to do with nostalgia, love, or guilt. It's because your exit shattered an identity they were desperately trying to protect. You weren't supposed to leave with your dignity, your peace, and your intuition intact. You weren't supposed to walk out like someone who saw the trap, solved the puzzle, and left the board cleaner than you found it. But you did. And now their mind is replaying the moment like a broken DVD player from 2006, loud, annoying, and refusing to eject the disc. Meanwhile, you're somewhere living your life, sipping your water, minding your business, and not even thinking about them. If irony had a face, it would be theirs right now. The truth is, your presence challenged their comfort, but your absence exposes their truth. And nothing haunts a person faster than losing someone who figured them out completely, yet still chose to walk away without clapping back, without screaming, without throwing shade, just pure, clean checkmate energy. That kind of ending isn't normal, and that's exactly why they're stuck. Because you didn't just exit, you ended the storyline they were banking on. So tonight, we're going deep into why they can't forget you, why your checkmate still rattles their spirit, and why your name hits their memory like a notification they can't swipe away. And trust me, by the end of this you'll understand why your absence has more authority than their entire presence ever did. Number 1. You shattered the illusion that they were the smarter one. This point hits deeper than most people realize, because it wasn't just a misunderstanding or a disagreement, it was an ego collapse. They walked into your life thinking they already had you figured out. They believed they were the one with the upper hand, the one pulling the strings, the one controlling the narrative. To them, you were predictable, soft, and easy to maneuver. They assumed you would react the same way every time, accept every excuse, and fall for every recycled tactic. Their entire sense of power came from the belief that they were outsmarting you. Then came the shift, the one moment that snapped the whole illusion in half. You didn't argue. You didn't argue. You didn't explain. You didn't announce your growth. You simply started seeing everything clearly, and once you saw it, you moved differently. That was the beginning of their downfall. When you responded with calm clarity instead of confusion, they felt threatened. When you stopped giving emotional reactions, their tricks stopped working. And when you finally walked away with that quiet confidence, that's when the truth slapped them. They weren't the strategic mastermind they thought they were. They were just loud. What really haunts them is that you figured out their intentions long before they realized you were studying their patterns. You caught every inconsistency, every manipulation, every hidden motive, but instead of exploding, you evolved. That kind of intelligence is rare, and people who operate off ego don't know how to handle it. Their mind keeps replaying your exit like an unsolved riddle. How did you see through them? How did you stay calm? How did you outplay them without them even noticing? These questions bother them more than anything, because they never expected you to be the one who understood the entire game from start to finish. Now the illusion is gone, and they can't rebuild it. Every time they think about you, they're reminded of the moment they realized they weren't the smarter one. And nothing bruises a prideful person deeper than that kind of truth. You didn't just walk away, you exposed their weakness without saying a single word. They'll never forget that. Number 2, you outgrew the version of you they built their power around. The most painful truth for them isn't that you left, it's that you left stronger, wiser, and untouchable in a way they never anticipated. For years, they depended on a version of you that was smaller, hesitant, and easily influenced. That version fit perfectly into the story they were telling themselves, that they had control, that they could bend situations to their favor, that you would remain predictable. Their sense of dominance over you wasn't just a feeling. It was built on the foundation of your earlier self, the one they thought would never break free. But growth doesn't ask for permission. Growth doesn't negotiate. Growth shows up quietly, relentlessly, and transforms everything in its path. The moment you evolved, everything they relied on to maintain their control collapsed. The tricks that worked before stopped working. The manipulations that used to sway you lost their power. The expectations they had about your reactions, your limits, your tolerance, they all became irrelevant. You didn't just leave their narrative, you shattered it. And that's terrifying for anyone who thrived on keeping you contained. They can't forget you because they now live in a world where the person they thought they knew doesn't exist anymore, and there's no way to recreate it. What makes this haunting is the clarity with which you moved forward. You didn't lash out, and you didn't beg to be acknowledged. You simply evolved. Every choice you made, every step you took, was aligned with the stronger version of yourself. And because you did it with integrity, confidence, and calm, it highlights their failure even more. They weren't the obstacle, they were the illusion. Their attempts to pull you back, to remind you of how things used to be, only cemented the truth. They had no real power over you. Your growth was absolute. Your freedom was undeniable. And the version of you they once thought they could dominate now walks past them like a shadow they can't reach, leaving them stuck replaying memories, wondering at every moment where it all went wrong. They can never unsee the person you became. That is what haunts them, and that is why they will never forget you. Number 3. You revealed their character without exposing their secrets. There's a special kind of power in leaving someone fully exposed without ever raising your voice, without ever broadcasting their faults to the world. You didn't have to accuse, confront, or make a scene. You simply existed as the version of yourself that saw clearly, acted intentionally, and refused to participate in their chaos. Every move you made, every boundary you enforced, was a mirror reflecting their true nature back at them. And the scary part for them is that they can't hide behind excuses anymore because the evidence wasn't something you pointed out. It was something they displayed themselves. Their betrayal, manipulation, selfishness, or cruelty became obvious, and the only person holding the mirror was you. What makes this unforgettable, what makes it haunt them, is that your exit didn't depend on drama or revenge. You didn't need to tell anyone what they did or call them out publicly. You just stepped away, and in that space, their character was naked. People around them, and even they themselves, could see the cracks they tried so hard to cover. That's what cuts deeper than confrontation. Knowing the truth about yourself, realizing that someone else saw it, and having no way to change it. They can't erase the reflection you left behind because it was never painted with exaggeration or anger. It was carved out by your awareness, your restraint, and your integrity. Even now, long after you've gone, they replay the moments when they underestimated you. They remember the calm in your eyes, the quiet precision of your choices, and the fact that you never needed to expose them to prove a point. Every day, every interaction reminds them of what they showed themselves to be while you were there, and that truth is relentless. You didn't need to drag them into the light. The light was already there, and they walked into it themselves. That's why they can't forget you. You didn't just leave. You revealed them in the purest form, and some realizations never fade. Number 4. You weren't emotional, you were precise, and precision terrifies people. There's a kind of power in moving with calculated calm that most people never understand. They expected chaos, reactions, and drama. They expected you to mirror their energy, to stumble when provoked, to let anger or frustration cloud your judgment. Instead, you operated with precision. Every word you spoke, every step you took, every choice you made was intentional. There was no overreaction, no wasted energy, no impulsive emotional explosions. That kind of control is unsettling for someone who thrives on manipulation or power plays because it denies them the satisfaction of seeing you struggle or falter. When people try to manipulate, they rely on reactions, loud reactions, impulsive decisions, or emotional vulnerabilities. They need you to give them that fuel to feel dominant, to feel in control. But you didn't give them anything. You didn't play into their traps, didn't allow their chaos to dictate your actions, and didn't hand over the emotional ammunition they were counting on. That left them confused, frustrated, and most importantly, exposed. Precision doesn't just block manipulation, it highlights it. Every misstep they tried to engineer stands out starkly against your calculated calm, and that contrast haunts them because it's a reminder that you were always 3 steps ahead, watching, observing, calculating. What terrifies people isn't anger or vengeance, it's control disguised as stillness. They can't read you, can't anticipate your moves, and can't find a way to throw you off balance. They thought they were the players, but you proved you were the strategist. And because strategy requires no noise, no ego, and no unnecessary drama, it leaves them unsettled. They walk away from your presence, knowing they lost before the game even started, but they can't pinpoint when, how, or why. That uncertainty sticks with them. You weren't loud, you weren't reactive, you weren't a storm they could chase or conquer. You were exact, calculated, and unshakable. And that is why they can't forget you. They can replay the scenario endlessly, trying to figure out how you moved with such effortless control while they fumbled, and every replay deepens the realization that they underestimated you completely. Number 5, you forced them to face the fact that loyalty has a limit. They assumed you would always be there, no matter how they treated you, no matter how many lines they crossed, no matter how much they took for granted. They built their confidence around the idea that your loyalty was infinite, that your patience would never run out, that your presence was a guarantee. For them, it was a comfort and a power play rolled into one. They could push boundaries, test limits, and still count on you to stay. But then you proved them wrong. When you finally drew the line, it wasn't loud, it wasn't aggressive, it wasn't dramatic. You simply stopped accepting what they thought they could get away with. You didn't negotiate. You didn't apologize for your standards. You just stopped allowing their behavior to define your presence or your peace. That moment of clarity was brutal for them. It was proof that loyalty isn't a blank check. It is conditional, sacred, and not to be exploited. What haunts them now is not just that you left, but that you left while showing them the consequences of their actions without stooping to vengeance. You became the living reminder that loyalty can be worn out, stretched, and finally exhausted. Every day they replay your exit and the calm certainty behind it. They remember the ease with which you walked away and the dignity you maintained. And it reminds them that they can't manipulate loyalty. They can't buy it, force it, or assume it will always be there. They realize that you weren't angry. They were the problem. Your departure wasn't punishment, it was principle. And principles leave a mark that lasts. Every failed attempt to reclaim what they lost only proves the same truth. You had a limit, and they exceeded it. They are stuck remembering your strength, your self-respect, and the quiet power that comes with refusing to tolerate disrespect. They can't forget that the moment they believed loyalty was guaranteed, they were already defeated, and that defeat lingers in their minds long after you've gone. Number 6. You showed them what their life looks like without the one person who truly understood them. The truth is, most people go through life surrounded by noise, distractions, and shallow connections. They think they have relationships, but what they really have are placeholders. People who are convenient, who appease them, or who exist only when needed. Then you arrive, fully present, fully aware, fully understanding. You see their patterns, their fears, their unspoken needs. You recognize the layers they hide from everyone else. You match their energy in ways that matter. You respond in ways that resonate, and you give them the rare experience of being known, not just seen, not just tolerated, but deeply understood. When you leave, the void is immediate and undeniable. They don't just miss a companion, they miss a mirror. They miss someone who could read their intentions without a single word, someone who could anticipate their moods and meet them without judgment, someone who could stabilize the chaos that their own ego often amplifies. Suddenly all the people they relied on feel shallow, repetitive, and meaningless. The silence that follows your departure is deafening because it isn't empty. It's filled with the realization of what they had and squandered. What haunts them most is that you didn't leave in anger, and you didn't exit in a storm of drama. You simply became absent in a way that magnified the difference between their usual interactions and the depth you brought into their life. Every attempt they make to fill the space with distractions, new faces, or hollow experiences fails because none of it matches the clarity, understanding, and alignment they had with you. They replay moments where your insight surprised them, where your words resonated, where your presence mattered more than anything else, and that memory becomes a quiet, persistent ghost. You weren't just someone in their life, they were temporarily in yours. And when you leave, they're forced to confront the reality that they lost someone who saw them completely and responded with wisdom, patience, and presence. That realization doesn't fade. It lingers, it gnaws, and it reminds them every day that they can't replace what you once gave freely, and that's why they will never forget you. Number 7. You broke the spell of familiarity they thought would bind you forever. People love to rely on patterns, routines, and the predictable nature of others because it gives them comfort and control. They assume that history is stronger than boundaries, that familiarity will always keep you in place, and that years of shared moments automatically mean loyalty is unshakable. They banked on the idea that you would stay, that your presence was a constant they could manipulate without consequence. But what they didn't account for is that you see beyond habit, beyond convenience, beyond the false security of repeated cycles. When you stepped away, it wasn't just a physical exit. It was a dismantling of the narrative they depended on. You proved that history does not equal ownership, that time shared does not guarantee permanence, and that emotional familiarity is meaningless when the soul itself has evolved. They were used to seeing you in a certain way, and in that version they had power. They expected your reactions, your compliance, your presence, all aligned with the old rhythm they had grown comfortable with. But you didn't just change the rhythm. You became an entirely new frequency they couldn't reach, a version of yourself they didn't even know existed until it stood before them fully realized. What haunts them is the realization that their confidence in forever was never deserved. They thought that repeated exposure could tether you, that routine could blind you, that comfort could cage you. But you refused to be caged by familiarity. You moved beyond expectation, beyond repetition, beyond the invisible chains they assumed were permanent. Every time they think of you, It's not just the memory of your presence. They're haunted by the awareness that they lost someone who saw their predictability and still refused to be trapped by it. Your departure rewrote the rules. You didn't just leave, you broke the spell, and that's why they can never forget you. Because no matter what they try to recreate, no matter how many new people enter their life, they will never replace the awareness, clarity, and autonomy you carried. You shattered their certainty, and that kind of awakening doesn't fade. It lingers. Number 8. You didn't cut them off. Life cut off their access to your frequency. The hardest truth for them is that it wasn't a dramatic severing or an angry confrontation that ended things. It was you simply moving beyond their reach. You didn't need to announce your departure, threaten them, or make noise. Your energy, your clarity, your evolution created a boundary so undeniable that they naturally fell out of alignment with you. Life itself enforced the distance, and that is what makes your absence so haunting. They can't just call, text, or manipulate their way back in. They can't slide into old patterns or revive what once existed because the version of you they knew is gone, and the frequency you operate on now is something they can't access. They can replay the past endlessly, obsess over what went wrong, and try to recreate the version of you they used to control. But none of it works. You didn't leave them in anger, you left them in reality. And reality has a way of teaching the hardest lessons. Every attempt they make to reclaim what they lost only reinforces the truth. They are no longer in your orbit. That subtle shift, that invisible separation, is more powerful than any confrontation, argument, or apology. It's precise, quiet, and permanent. What makes this unforgettable is that they can feel it even when they aren't looking for it. They sense your absence like a vibration that no one else can match, like a tune their ears have forgotten how to hear. They notice your influence lingering in the lives around you, in choices they wish they'd made, and in the way people respond to your presence elsewhere. Every encounter reminds them of the gap they created, and every day spent trying to reach you only emphasizes the fact that your energy isn't theirs to command anymore. You didn't have to cut them off. Life did it for you. Your elevation, your clarity, and your evolution created a space they can't inhabit. And that is why they can never forget you, because the truth is undeniable. They lost access to someone they can no longer influence, manipulate, or predict. And that kind of permanent absence leaves a mark no apology or action can erase. Number 9. You treated them better than they deserved, and now they're stuck with that comparison forever. One of the most unforgettable realities for them isn't that you left, it's how you treated them while you were still there. You didn't stoop to their level. You didn't mirror their toxicity. You didn't react with petty revenge or emotional outbursts. You met them with integrity, calm, and respect, even when they clearly didn't deserve it. That kind of behavior sticks in a person's mind because it sets a standard they can't reach and a memory they can't erase. They are left constantly comparing every interaction with anyone else to the way you handled them, and every time they fail to measure up, it gnaws at them. What makes this so haunting is that your kindness wasn't weakness, it was strength. You weren't being nice to earn favor or avoid conflict. You were being controlled, intentional, and consistent. You showed that maturity doesn't require tempering your standards, that understanding doesn't need excuses, and that composure doesn't require lowering your worth to someone else's level. Every moment they replay, they're reminded that they were treated better than they deserved, and that recognition stings because it's a mirror they can't ignore. Even now, long after you've stepped away, every failed attempt they make to rebuild connections or influence others carries the shadow of your presence. The way you handled situations, the way you spoke and acted, the level of thoughtfulness and care you demonstrated, it lingers in their memory. They notice it in the reactions of others, in the ease with which you move through life, and in the stark contrast between your authenticity and their manipulations. They are constantly reminded that someone once elevated them without asking, without judging, and without compromising themselves, and they can never replicate it. You didn't just leave them. You left a benchmark. Every interaction, every conversation, every subtle act of respect or understanding now exists as a permanent comparison they can't escape. That is why they can never forget you. You became the standard they failed to meet, and no amount of time, people, or apologies will erase that truth from their mind. Number 10. You proved that their betrayal didn't cripple you. It crowned you. There's a type of power in taking what was meant to break you and turning it into your strength. They assumed that their actions, whether lies, manipulation, or betrayal, would leave you shattered, lost, or dependent. They assumed their attempts to wound you would weaken you, make you question yourself, or keep you under their control. But you didn't just survive their behavior, you grew from it. Every betrayal, every slight, every calculated move they made to hurt or undermine you became fuel. Instead of collapsing under the weight of their actions, you used it to sharpen your vision, strengthen your boundaries, and elevate your entire presence. What makes this unforgettable for them is that they expected drama, tears, or self-pity. Instead, they were met with someone unshakable, someone who carried themselves with clarity and dignity, someone who quietly turned pain into strategy. Their betrayal, which was meant to dominate your story, became the catalyst for your rise. That reversal is a psychological sting they can't shake, because it proves that their power was never real. They only believed it was because you allowed them to see a version of you they thought they could control. Even now, they replay their attempts to hurt you, only to realize each one backfired in the most humiliating way. It didn't make you weaker, it made you unstoppable. The very tactics they thought would collapse your spirit became the tools that cemented your independence and growth. Every day they reflect on it, they face the undeniable truth that you transformed adversity into mastery, betrayal into strategy, and challenge into triumph. You didn't just survive their attempts, you crowned yourself with the strength they tried to steal from you. That is why they can never forget you. Their actions were meant to break you, and instead, they revealed your power. Every memory of their betrayal is now a reminder of how completely they miscalculated. You didn't just walk away. You rose above, and that rise will haunt them forever. Number 11. You didn't lose them. They lost access to someone they will never meet twice. This is the reality that keeps them awake at night, whether they admit it or not. They believe they had a hold on you, that your presence was theirs to take for granted, and that your absence could be remedied or replaced. What they failed to understand is that you were never theirs to own. You were never a trophy, a consolation, or a possession. You were a singular force, a unique combination of awareness, strength, and energy that cannot be duplicated. When you walked away, it wasn't just a physical distance. They lost access to a frequency, a level of presence, and a depth of understanding that cannot be replicated. What haunts them most is the permanence of that loss. Every attempt to recreate what they had with you falls short because they were never in sync with the real you. They only knew the version you allowed them to see. And that version was extraordinary, rare, and fully alive. You didn't just vanish. You became a standard they could never meet, a benchmark they cannot reach, a ghost of authenticity in a world full of imitation. Even more infuriating for them is the awareness that your life continues fully intact, moving forward, while theirs feels like it's stuck on pause. They try to replace what they lost, but it isn't just about missing a person. It's about missing the alignment, the clarity, the wisdom, and the presence that only you brought. No new connection, no fresh acquaintance, no apology or gesture can recreate the energy you carried, the insight you shared, or the rare quality of understanding that made being around you more than just company. It was a lesson, a mirror, a catalyst. They replay moments endlessly, trying to pinpoint when it all slipped away, and every time they do, they realize the truth. They didn't lose you. You transcended the role they tried to contain you in. They lost access to someone who only comes once in a lifetime, someone they will never meet twice. And that is why they can never forget you. Number 12. You ended the cycle they were comfortable repeating. They thrived on patterns, predictable reactions, and the repetition of behaviors that gave them control. They assumed life with you was a cycle they could reset whenever they wanted. Repeat the mistakes, push the boundaries, manipulate the narrative, and expect the same responses from you. They thought you would allow the cycle to continue because it had always continued before. But you didn't. You didn't participate in the endless loop they counted on, and that changed everything. Your departure wasn't just leaving, it was a full stop to a story they assumed would endlessly repeat. What haunts them is the sudden realization that the safety net they relied on never existed. Every excuse they made, every manipulation they deployed, every attempt to return to the old dynamics is now meaningless because you refused to play their game. You broke the rhythm they depended on. You showed them that repetition and comfort aren't enough to hold someone who has grown, evolved, and recognized their worth. You didn't need to yell, argue, or confront. They only realized the shift when they tried to fall back into old patterns and found the space empty. Your exit exposed a reality they couldn't face while you were present. That accountability is not optional, that cycles have limits, and that your presence was never theirs to control. The comfort of manipulation, the familiarity of predictability, and the illusion of dominance were all stripped away without a single dramatic scene. What they feel now is emptiness, a gap that reminds them daily that the rules have changed and that you are no longer participating in the story they hoped to replay. They are haunted by the clarity you brought simply by leaving. Your absence dismantled their expectations, erased the scripts they relied on, and forced them to confront a truth they ignored. The cycle they counted on was broken forever. They can't forget you because the memory of that disruption lingers. You didn't just walk away. You ended a pattern they assumed would never end, and nothing they do can ever bring it back. Number 13. Your absence exposed how loud their internal chaos actually is. When you were around, your presence was a stabilizer. You brought clarity, calm, and a sense of order that softened the storms in their life, often without them realizing it. They leaned on that stability, mistaking it for something permanent, something guaranteed. They didn't see it as a reflection of your strength. They saw it as something they could take for granted, and then you left. You didn't need to create drama or call out their flaws. You simply withdrew, and suddenly the chaos they'd been ignoring became impossible to hide. Your absence revealed the noise they had been avoiding, the insecurity, the guilt, the confusion, the ego-driven decisions that no one was there to temper. Every thought, every reaction, every unbalanced choice became louder in the silence you left behind. They thought they were managing life, but without you, it became painfully clear how messy, unstable, and reactive their world truly was. And that realization is terrifying because it's inescapable. They can't fix it by reaching out to you, by explaining themselves, or by attempting to manipulate circumstances. They're left with a mirror that reflects nothing but their own chaos. What haunts them is that they can still feel your presence in the memory of your calm, your clarity, your quiet strength. It reminds them daily of how they relied on you without appreciating the discipline and intention you carried. Every failure, every impulsive decision, every loud argument or overreaction now stands in stark contrast to what life felt like when you were there. They're stuck replaying the moments when your energy balanced theirs and comparing it to the disarray they now face alone. You didn't just leave a space. They exposed a truth they couldn't escape. The calm they mistook for weakness was your power, and without it, they are forced to confront the storm they never controlled. They can never forget you, because your absence didn't just remove you from their life. It amplified their inner chaos in ways that nothing else can, and that revelation lingers relentlessly, haunting them every day. Number 14. You delivered a checkmate because you understood their game better than they did. The reason they can't forget you is simple. You saw the entire board while they were still moving pieces blindly. They believed they were the strategist, the one in control, the one who understood how every interaction, every word, every action would unfold. But you weren't playing by their rules. You were observing, calculating, and anticipating moves they didn't even realize they were making. By the time they realized the scope of your awareness, the game was already over. You didn't just outmaneuver them. You exposed the limitations of their strategy without raising your voice, without needing to prove anything, without giving them a single hint that you were 10 steps ahead. That kind of precision is unforgettable. They replay the interactions endlessly, trying to figure out the moment they lost. And every memory is a reminder that they underestimated you completely. They thought they were the player, but you were the one controlling the narrative. Every manipulation, every attempt to influence or deceive fell flat because you understood not just the immediate move, but the long-term consequences of every choice they made. You weren't reacting, you were orchestrating, and the silence of your departure was the final stroke of genius they couldn't undo. What haunts them isn't just that they lost, it's that they lost in a way that made them appear foolish, weak, and unprepared. They can't forget the realization that someone they thought they could predict, control, or understand was operating on a level they couldn't reach. That checkmate wasn't loud or theatrical, it was quiet, absolute, and irreversible. They are left replaying the game in their minds, trying to find the loophole they missed, the strategy they overlooked, the moment they could have won, and every attempt only reminds them that they never had the upper hand. You didn't just leave, they walked away from a board you had already mastered. And that is why they can never forget you. You weren't just part of their story. You rewrote it, ended it, and proved beyond any doubt that understanding the game is worth infinitely more than playing it with ego. Their loss is permanent, and your checkmate is unforgettable. The reality is this: you are unforgettable because you operate on a level that cannot be copied, controlled, or contained. Every step you took, every boundary you enforced, every quiet act of awareness and strength left an imprint so deep that it lingers in the minds of those who once underestimated you. You shattered illusions, outgrew limitations, revealed hidden truths, and delivered a checkmate so precise that no apology, explanation, or manipulation could ever undo it. They can replay moments, second-guess decisions, and search for answers, but the truth is undeniable. Your presence, your energy, and your clarity left a mark they will carry forever. You weren't just someone they encountered. You were the reflection they couldn't hide from, the challenge they couldn't solve, and the standard they could never reach. You exposed their patterns without raising your voice, elevated yourself without making it about them, and left in a way that amplified your power rather than their regrets. Their obsession with the past, their attempts to reclaim what they lost, and their constant replaying of your presence are proof of one undeniable fact. They underestimated your vision, your strength, and your ability to move through life with precision. And because you acted from integrity, strategy, and self-respect, their memory of you isn't painful, They are haunted, not by what you did, but by the truth you revealed about them. The mark you leave isn't temporary. The lessons, the awareness, the benchmarks, and the undeniable energy you carried will remain in their mind long after any drama has faded. You've set a standard that cannot be lowered, a presence that cannot be replaced, and a reality that they must face every day. You cannot be forgotten. If this message resonates with you, and you recognize the power you carry, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more truths that hit deeper than surface-level advice. Like this video to honor the strength you hold, comment to share your story and experiences, and share it with those who need to see it. The energy you invest in understanding and claiming your power is the energy that will define your legacy, and together we're here to amplify it. God bless you.